My ex-husband Tom's cruel words still echo in my mind. I shouldn't have married an old hag like you. Younger women are definitely better. I can't even walk with you in public. You're so embarrassing. If I could, I'd go back in time and start my life over. He said these things to me a decade ago. I'm Elizabeth, and I'm 48 years old now. I was 33 when I married Tom, who was 5 years younger than me. We met at the hospital where I worked as a nurse, and he was a new doctor fresh out of his residency. Tom frequently sought my advice, and his genuine curiosity was endearing, so I found myself drawn to him despite our age difference. After 2 years of dating, we married. Despite some initial worries about the age gap, Tom seemed unconcerned, so I put my doubts aside. However, after 5 years of marriage, Tom's demeanor changed. He began verbally abusing me, constantly voicing his regret over not marrying a younger woman. His overly friendly interactions with young nurses at work upset me, but I stayed quiet, not wanting to cause a scene in the hospital. Tom's infidelity was revealed one day, and the other woman was a former patient of his, someone I had never met because we worked in different departments. She was 10 years younger than me and expecting his child. Tom's casual attitude toward his betrayal was shocking. With an old lady like you, it's no wonder we couldn't have kids. My girlfriend is carrying my child, he said with a laugh. I couldn't stay in such a toxic relationship any longer and agreed to a divorce. When I told Tom and his girlfriend I would seek alimony, Tom reacted with anger. I was married to an old hag like you for 5 years, and you want alimony. I should be the one getting paid. Who would pay you anything? His outburst surprised me, revealing he had never considered he might owe me financial support despite his affair. Tom's father even called me, dismissing his son's behavior and suggesting it was natural for a young man to pursue a younger woman. I was appalled by their complete lack of accountability. Tom adamantly refused to pay, leaving me no choice but to consult a lawyer. I couldn't just walk away quietly after his infidelity and verbal abuse. The lawyer assured me I had the right to seek alimony, and I entrusted them with the process. It's often said that divorce is more challenging than marriage, and I certainly found that to be true. Thanks to my lawyer's efforts, I received a fair alimony settlement, ended the lease on our shared apartment, and began living on my own. I changed my last name back to my maiden name, Britton. One positive outcome was that Tom transferred to a different hospital. I wouldn't want to work with a greedy old hag like you, he remarked as a final jab. Though he quickly secured a new position at another hospital, likely in anticipation of backlash from marrying his mistress, it was clear he had planned his next move carefully. Despite everything, rumors about me circulated, suggesting I had been cast aside by my younger husband. This constant gossip weighed heavily on me and made me feel paranoid. Eventually, I left my job at the hospital. After some time aimlessly drifting, I decided to pursue work again, as I thrive on staying busy and active. Luckily, I found a small maternity clinic just 2 stops away from my new home that was looking for nurses, and I was hired immediately. Though the hospital was small with few doctors and nurses, it was a pleasant work environment where everyone got along well with patients. Miss Britton, you have a keen eye and the patients adore you. We're fortunate to have you, they would tell me. But my peace didn't last long. A pregnant woman was referred to us from another hospital, and I immediately recognized her name, Sarah Evans. She shared the same last name as Tom's mistress. Curious, I checked her husband's name, Tom Evans, a doctor. Without a doubt, it was my ex-husband Tom. His new hospital lacked an obstetrics department, so they had been referred to us. Since I had resumed my maiden name and we had never met in person, she did not recognize me, but I never expected our paths to cross here. I hesitated to reveal to anyone that she was my ex-husband's mistress, so I kept the information to myself for a few days. Then one day, Tom accompanied his wife to her checkup. His eyes widened in shock when he saw me. Clearly, he had not anticipated running into me here, and I certainly had no desire to see him either. "What are you doing here?" Tom questioned me, and his wife quickly realized who I was. "Wait, is she here to harass us?" she asked, casting an accusatory glance in my direction. "Of course not," I replied. "I was here first. I had no idea Tom had moved near this hospital." But Tom refused to hear my side of the story and accused me of following them to cause trouble. "You're stalking me, aren't you?" he shouted. "Don't be absurd." "Why would I do that? You squeezed money out of me because you're old and got dumped," he yelled, causing everyone in the examination room to learn about our relationship. The stares of the onlookers made me feel uncomfortable, even though I knew Tom was in the wrong. His wife escalated the situation by feigning distress, saying, "Oh, I'm scared. I feel like I've been targeted ever since I came here. What if something happens to my baby?" Tom took this opportunity to demand, "Please keep her away from my wife." The doctor in charge then asked me to leave the examination room, likely just trying to defuse the situation. I understood the need to prioritize patients, but I felt deeply humiliated. I didn't want to be there either, especially because I didn't want the details of my divorce to be exposed. To make matters worse, Tom's wife continued to berate me every time she came to the hospital. Although everyone knew I wasn't to blame, they chose to remain silent to avoid upsetting her or interfering with her pregnancy. As a result, the work environment grew increasingly uncomfortable. With more than 6 months until her due date, I couldn't imagine enduring the tense atmosphere for that long. Although it was a good workplace, I decided to resign from the hospital. "It's a shame, but there's nothing we can do," the director said, looking somewhat relieved. Though I knew I had done nothing wrong, it felt as if I were being unjustly penalized. Worn out from the ordeal, I decided not to search for a new hospital job and instead returned to my parents' rural home. They welcomed me without saying a word. Initially, I found it difficult to do anything, but the thought of remaining idle at home made me feel guilty. So I took a part-time job at a nearby supermarket. Working outside of a hospital was a new experience, but it offered a refreshing change of pace. I had always loved being a nurse, and it brought me great fulfillment, but the constant pressure and responsibility for people's lives were a heavy burden. Stepping away from that environment was a relief for my emotional well-being. 3 years after moving back home, I was offered a full-time position at the supermarket. My hard work had been recognized, and I was genuinely pleased to accept the offer. 4 years later, a matchmaker approached me. "Would you consider an arranged marriage?" they asked, catching me off guard. "Excuse me?" "I have just the right person in mind for you," the store manager announced one day. At 45, I had no plans to remarry, so I politely declined. However, the manager was persistent. "The potential match is a 47-year-old divorcee, just like you, who went through a similar divorce due to infidelity 20 years ago," the manager explained. In the end, I agreed to at least meet the person. Given our ages, we decided to meet directly without involving any intermediaries. When I arrived at the agreed-upon restaurant, my date was already there waiting. As I walked into the room, he stood up quickly to greet me and accidentally bumped his forehead against the table in his haste to bow politely. "Ow!" He raised his face, which had turned a deep shade of red. I couldn't help but laugh at the comical situation. It was a refreshingly lighthearted start to our meeting. "Hi, I'm James. Thank you for coming today." "Nice to meet you." "I'm Elizabeth," I responded. Thanks to his endearing mishap, we quickly felt at ease with one another. As James shared his story, I discovered he had fallen in love with me at first sight when he visited our supermarket during a business trip. He had arranged a meeting after discussing it with his college senior, who happened to be the manager of our main store. "I hope we can pursue a serious relationship," James said earnestly. Although I had initially planned to decline any romantic involvement, I found myself wanting to see him again instead. After dating for 6 months, we decided to get married. My parents were delighted with James and his thoughtful nature, and they were truly happy for us. Living with a husband who always puts me first has been a blessing. Since we were both older, we had agreed not to have children and instead hoped to enjoy a peaceful life together. But when I turned 48, my health began to decline. A visit to the hospital revealed an unexpected surprise. I was pregnant. I never thought I would conceive at my age, and my initial symptoms did not suggest morning sickness. My husband seemed just as taken aback. "It looks like there's a baby on the way," I told him. His immediate response was, "That's wonderful. So who's the lucky one? Do I know them?" "Yes, you know them very well. They're standing right in front of you," I said with a smile. "What? I'm the one who's pregnant?" he asked, astonished. At my words, my husband looked perplexed and remained silent for a moment. I couldn't help but think, of course, this is the reaction I expected. He turned his gaze to my belly, our baby. I nodded, and his eyes grew even wider in surprise. The news was so unexpected that it clearly took him a moment to process. "I mean, even I didn't see this coming. So we're going to be mom and dad." "Looks like it," I confirmed. "Really? Whoa." My husband, taken aback by the unexpected news, embraced me with excitement. It's unbelievable. A miracle, a miracle. Is it okay for me to give birth? I hadn't considered not going through with the pregnancy, but I was aware of the potential complications given my age. Even the hospital staff asked me, "What do you want to do?" I understood the risks of having a baby at an older age for both the mother and child. I anticipated that not everyone around me would be supportive, and some might question my decision. Concerns about raising a child at this stage of life also weighed on my mind. Despite these fears, I couldn't imagine ending the life growing within me. "What are you talking about? Of course, yes," my husband quickly responded. His enthusiasm brought me happiness, but after some time, he began to express concern for my health. It's easy to imagine the potential challenges even for someone as supportive as my husband. We talked extensively and consulted with our doctor before ultimately deciding to move forward with the pregnancy. While our parents were initially surprised and concerned, they were also genuinely happy for us. We chose to give birth at a large, well-equipped hospital to ensure the best care. The doctor overseeing the pregnancy was kind and reassuring, and on the day of one of my checkups, an internist was scheduled to be present alongside the obstetrician as a precaution. My husband was supposed to accompany me, but he had an unavoidable work commitment, so I attended the appointment alone. To my astonishment, my ex-husband Tom was also at the hospital. I never expected to encounter him in a setting like this. "Wait, seriously? You the 48-year-old pregnant woman?" Tom exclaimed with a laugh. Having a baby at that age is unbelievable. The obstetrician and nurse in the room exchanged confused glances, but Tom seemed unfazed. "You have no right to speak to me like that. I'm genuinely concerned about you, getting pregnant at your age. It's not appropriate. You're already an anxious woman. Are you even qualified to be a doctor? Why are you acting so superior? You should know that most patients here are affluent. Do you not realize you're making a fool of yourself? Excuse me, Dr. Evans, I'll be leaving. I wouldn't want to give birth in a hospital with a doctor like you." "Fine, leave." "Dr. Evans, that woman is the wife of the Miles Group heir, who has made substantial donations to our hospital." "What? Dr. Evans, you might not have realized since you're new to our hospital." "No, but she's mine." "I have no relation to you. Nevertheless, your comments were inappropriate, as Mrs. Miles pointed out. I can't believe a doctor would say such a thing." At that moment, my husband walked in. "Sorry I'm late. My wife has been an immense help to you." He'd immediately noticed my anger, and Tom turned pale, realizing something was amiss. "Is there a problem?" "This man, Dr. Evans, just told me that giving birth at 48 is disgusting." "What?" My usually gentle husband's expression hardened in an instant when he heard my words. Since I mentioned Dr. Evans by name, he likely pieced together that the man in question was my ex-husband. I had shared details of my previous marriage with him, including Tom's name and occupation. "Are you Dr. Evans? You insulted my wife, didn't you?" Well, that's... What kind of hospital allows a doctor to insult a patient? I can't trust this place with my wife and our unborn child." As soon as my husband finished speaking, the nurse who had left earlier returned with the hospital director. I was informed there had been some disrespect. "Director, we came to this hospital on my father's recommendation, but I can't believe a doctor like this is on staff here. It seems we've chosen the wrong hospital." "I'm deeply sorry. That's not accurate. This individual is not a member of our medical staff." "What?" "I just terminated his employment." "Director, what?" "I was unaware of his behavior until now. I only hired him as a favor to a friend. We cannot tolerate a doctor who speaks in such a derogatory manner. He will not be practicing here any longer." "Wait, Director, what do you mean?" "Quiet. Leave immediately and do not return to our hospital." Upon hearing the director's decree, Tom, who protested with "No, why?" was escorted out of the hallway by the obstetrician. The director offered profuse apologies, leaving us feeling sympathetic toward him. After regaining our composure, we resumed our seats, but my husband's anger lingered. "Did you only fire him because of my father's donations to the hospital? If not, would you allow such a doctor to continue working here?" The director shook his head in disbelief. It appeared that Tom had only been working at the hospital for a week. Tom's father, who was a classmate of the hospital director, had asked the director to hire his son after a recent reunion. The director had no idea Tom would behave in such a manner and offered a sincere apology. Not all the doctors at this hospital are like Tom. In fact, our obstetrician is a skilled and reputable physician. If it weren't for Tom, I would have preferred to give birth here, I explained, and my husband agreed. My father-in-law is the president of a major company with branches nationwide, donating a portion of their profits to medical and welfare facilities. He had generously contributed to this hospital because my mother-in-law received treatment for a serious illness here when she was young. As a result, my father-in-law recommended this hospital for my childbirth. A few days later, Tom reached out to us, pleading for us to intervene with the director and have him reinstated. Surely, if you ask, they might reconsider, right? It became apparent that Tom had a history of angering patients with his arrogant demeanor and had been repeatedly moving from one hospital to another. It was frustrating to see him repeating the same mistakes time and again. Despite warnings from his father, my ex-father-in-law, that there would be dire consequences if he were fired again, Tom seemed unable to learn from his actions. I couldn't help but wonder if my ex-father-in-law's leniency had contributed to Tom's behavior. When the call came, my husband was by my side. He took the phone from me and firmly warned Tom that if he ever attempted to contact us again or came near me, he would report him to the police for harassment. It seemed that Tom took this threat seriously, as he never called again. A while later, on our way home from the hospital, we stopped at a convenience store and saw Tom working there. It appeared that no other hospital would hire him anymore. He was visibly upset and told us that his wife and child had left him, but I felt no sympathy. I decided to avoid that convenience store from then on. The next year, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She is truly a delight, and I am committed to raising her with love and care. My husband has been enamored with our daughter since the moment she was born and is showing signs of becoming a very doting father. I'll need to keep an eye on him to make sure he doesn't spoil her too much.